Hi guys, welcome back to my Devlog series. This is episode 4. I've just moved out of my typical uni room and I'm back home in London, and there is no space to work here at all, and I've got a summer job now, so I can't even do too much, but I'm really good at working under hard conditions, and yeah, it's been horrible, but I've got some good content to show, I think, at least. So for the most part, when developing this game, I've just kind of been running off vibes, and I mean it like I haven't had a clear plan or direction for the game. I simply started a project one day and just decided to play around with different mechanics that I like. I spent so long sort of debating a theme for the game, and it wasn't until one day I drew a picture of me in a comic book style as like an exorcist, and that's when I got the idea that the game really could just be that. I could just make that a game. So I did, and I was working on it while studying at uni, and I've realized I've got to the point where I need to set clear goals and say, okay, cool, let me cement my ideas. This is what this game is going to be, and I know what I need to do now. That way I don't make any drastic changes, and I just work on what's really important for the game. I think this is a real challenge for me because I have a lot of grand ideas, and I kind of find it hard to stick to like thinking small and simple. So yeah, initially when I was coming up with the idea for this, I wanted something that was like a fantasy environment, I guess, but then I realized that that was kind of overdone. And while I do like coming up with these fantastical worlds that almost feel dreamlike, but it didn't really make sense for like a story and a solid setting. So for the settings, I decided to take inspiration from the world around me and from the stage of life that I'm in right now. Yeah, so the main concept of the game is like exorcist and fighting spirits and everything, but the exorcists are uni or college students. And to be honest, it's an idea that I've liked ever since. That, however, meant I needed a city as a stage. Open world design is kind of tough. Even AAA studios don't always get it right, and me, I have zero level design experience, like none at all. So I initially planned to do the game in like instance levels where I could just tell parts of the story, but then I realized if I was going to make the assets for the instance levels, I'd kind of just be making an open world but just separating everything by theme and location, so you still end up making the same amount of assets, just placing them differently. But I also thought of a mechanic that would make really good use of an open world and would blend really well with this idea of having multiple characters while fitting in with combat in the game. So recently I got into a game called Tales of Luminaria. I think that's how you say it. In the game you have different characters, and each character has a favorite meal, and basically when you take that meal you receive bigger buffs out of it because it's their favorite meal. I kind of want similar features for that for my characters and my game. I think it would be cool to have like favorite meals that can only be bought from specific places. But the thing about that is that it kind of requires an open world. And that left me with one big problem. How to design an open world as a person with no level design skills or poor modeling skills. For one, there was no way in hell that I was going to make hundreds of building assets in Blender. Honestly, during this whole process, I didn't even end up modeling a single building myself. I had done a lot of research before going into this, and I found that it was very easy and possible to do procedural buildings nowadays. There already were a bunch of assets on the marketplace that kind of did this for me, and I even had one myself that I got for free, but it was way too realistic and it didn't really fit the anime aesthetic of my game, so it was out the window. So I guess my only option was to make a system that kind of fit all my requirements. And my requirements were, well, I wanted to be able to make a building system that could have different shapes. So it wasn't just basic cubes. It needed to be able to have like different lengths. I needed windows, I needed pavements and city blocks. Even more than that, it needed to be performance friendly, so it had to be low poly. So how the hell was I going to do this? Well, since I already had an asset that did a similar thing, I thought, why not just kind of copy the relevant stuff and then just repurpose it for mine. It uses this spline system. It's like curves or coordinates, I guess. You just place the points around and close them up to create a shape. Then you use a spline mesh component to fill in the buildings. Yeah, that was a very bad explanation of how it's done, but I had to use a procedural mesh system for the roof. So basically it was going to dynamically create the roof from the shape and the spline coordinates. This was a built-in feature with Unreal Engine, but I honestly have no idea how it works. Like, I wish I could explain some of the maths that was going on. All I saw was recursions and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this. I just ended up taking functions they used in the other project and just used it for mine. Getting the windows on the walls was a lot easier. You just need a windows mesh and a double for loop so you can place them along the surface of a wall. Altogether, it wasn't that hard to actually get done. It just needed some time experimenting and a little bit of patience, which is new for me. Some of my code isn't perfect. Actually, a lot of my code isn't perfect. I can't get the windows to distribute evenly. I think for like 1 week of work, it's not that bad. The system right now is actually quite flexible and I can come up with a lot of variations, which is important to make the city feel livable and alive. Each building has a seed, so it isn't randomized every time I compile. But that also means that if I don't like the seed, I can change it and come up with a new building instantly. Doing this kind of still requires a lot of manual work, but it's the fun kind of manual work, like laying out some buildings and seeing if the vibe is nice, rather than having to create 200 building models on Blender, you know. One is therapeutic, the other is torture. I lastly just needed some decors for the road, and yeah, I think I was pretty much set on how to do this. I think soon enough I'll actually be able to create the city properly. The only problem is now that I know it's possible for me to do an open world city, I actually need to do some open world city planning. And honestly, that's a very great stage for me to be in, because last week I didn't even think it'd be possible for me to do it. So it's definitely some good progress. The way this open world is going to work is that when you're not in combat in the world, you could, let's say, be struggling on a mission and you need a specific buff that also happens to be your character's favorite meal. So you go to that place, to the store, and you get the favorite meal, and that can help you out in the next fight. Or it could just be that you need more supplies like band-aids or consumables, so you just go to the corner shop to get some more. So now I just need to get the quest system done in the next few weeks, and I think I could have a solid prototype. So secondly, I've also been working on the way I design weapons and the way weapons work in the game. In the first video I did, only certain characters could use swords and only certain characters could use like a bow and arrow. Then I realized I really hate this mechanic. You see, I kind of hate it when a game takes away your freedom. For me, when you can build your characters how you like and you can experiment with different options, that's like a big appeal for me, and that's what made me like games like Skyrim and Warframe so much. So I decided, yeah, I want to make my weapons unlocked so any character can now use any weapon. As for the way weapons play and the feel, I decided to go for each one being unique and powerful in its own way. So for instance, we have a grimoire or a magic book. A 1-star grimoire could just do basic attacks like these. This 5-star grimoire that I'm calling Burning Sun has got some really nice fire attacks with specific themes like this. So instead of one weapon just doing more damage, it actually changes the way you play with the weapon. This basically makes each weapon unique, even if it's in a similar class as another weapon. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it at that now for weapons. That about covers it for recent development. I'm really trying to get towards a point where I can come up with like a roadmap video. Not only is it like, if you guys are interested, you guys can actually know, but also it helps me know what I'm working towards. I also want to start posting shorter content more frequently. I might leave my TikTok, Twitter or Discord in the description. I don't really post much on my socials, but every time one of you guys follow me on there, kind of makes me feel like I should be posting more, so I kind of like start preparing, even though I don't, but I kind of want to change that. So do leave me a follow on there, and I'm going to try to post more there instead of like once a month on YouTube. So yeah, like and subscribe, and I will probably see you guys next month.